Hello and good morning. Today, our webinar, Coordinating with Service Providers for Ship Maintenance, is sponsored by Star Information Systems, and we are joined by Inge and Per-Anders Koyen, both from Star, who will be discussing with us the complexities that arise from having technologically advanced machinery on board, which is not always serviceable by crew on board. So before I pass on to our moderator, Karl Jeffery, founder and editor of Digital Ship, I'd like to remind you that we will have a Q&A session after our presentations. So I invite you to use the dedicated Q&A box to submit your inquiries to our panel. Okay, Karl?
Our theme today is looking at when we have to coordinate with outside service providers to do maintenance and how we manage that with digital technology. So traditional ship maintenance is planned by the crew, it's done during the sailing, and we've got enough crew on board to do it. But so what we're moving towards, we've got high-tech equipment on board, it needs specialists to maintain it, perhaps employees of the manufacturer. It's got lots of sensors and other electronics on it, and we're planning the maintenance onshore. So we're talking about engines, auxiliary generators, scrubbers, ballast water treatment systems, all the electronics and control systems for the whole ship, the sensors and inspection systems themselves. So look at the challenges we're planning. So if we're bringing in external maintenance people, we want to do the work during the port call if we possibly can, so they can get back to their own houses for dinner. We might want to give these external people some connection to the maintenance management system. We've got to coordinate all the tasks, the spare parts delivery. We want control of work systems, perhaps for safety reasons. So maybe we've got to extend the computerized maintenance management system onto their phone app. We've also got to coordinate the work somehow when we don't know exactly when the ship is going to arrive in port. And perhaps we've got multiple maintenance tasks all happening at once during the port call. Things might not go to plan. Perhaps we want to simulate to see what goes wrong and what might go wrong and what we're going to do about it. We might have manufacturers monitoring their own equipment directly. We may have a shipping company that wants to have their own team of specialists on something like engines who go from ship to ship, but that also needs coordinating. And then we've got the question about where the maintenance planning is best done, on the ship and the office, and both, and they both have a different perspective on it. So that's a lot we've got to talk about today. We're going to hear a bit from Per-Anders Koyen, who is CEO of Star Information Systems, joining us from Singapore, and Inge, Chief Commercial Officer with Star Information Systems, joining us from Oslo. So Star Information Systems is already developing tools to support remote maintenance staff in the shipping industry, and they also work in offshore oil and gas. Now, this isn't going to be a sort of technology presentation where we give you lots of screenshots. We want to make this quite discussion because we want to be thinking about how maintenance is going to be best managed in the coming years and how digital technology can help. And also Star is very interested in hearing from you if you've got your own ideas, because perhaps they can develop tools with you together. So I'd like to invite, I think John is going to start the presentation. Cheers.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. Thank you, Karl, for the intro. You covered a lot of topics there. Per-Anders, could you please bring up the shared screen?
You see it now?
Yeah, we see it now. What we will do today is we will look at maintenance, how it's done today, and we will also look into trends that we see coming, and what kind of challenges these changes will do for maintaining vessels and having the vessels staying compliant. And we will. Star has been in this industry for 25 years, and we will tell you a little bit about at the end how we continue to stay in the forefront to help you with these requirements that are coming towards us. And like Karl already said, we take the questions towards the end. What we have called the presentation is Coordinating with Service Providers for Ship Maintenance. Reason for this is that we realize that there will be a lot of service providers that will do maintenance instead of crew in the future. And we do believe that planning is maybe the main key how to take on this challenge, simply because a vessel, as you all know, would like to stay in port as shortly as possible. Okay, if you move on to the next slide, Per-Anders, please. There you go. As you all know, the vessel, the traditional way of handling this is that the crew on board take care of the maintenance. They will do that during sailing, simply because the sailing leg is due to happen anyway at more or less a given speed, so they have the time to do it. And traditionally, also the crew on board, they do the planning for what they want to do, and they also order all the supplies and goods they need for getting things done. We know that this is there is a background for this, and this is the port stay. And we will look into some elements that are reflecting into this this part. So if you move on, Verandas, to the next one. Yeah, what we see is that there is a trend in having less and less crew on board. We're even talking about ships that are totally unmanned. We think that that might happening. It will take a while before that will sort of be the case, but less crew will definitely be a topic in the future. And then in on board the vessels, we will have more high-tech equipment. And this high-tech equipment will then require specialists. And with less crew on board, more specialist requirement, doing the maintenance in the sea voyage is a challenge. And we will see that IoTs and sensors is one of the elements that are being put in place to reduce maintenance done. Because we know that probably if you follow the maintenance plan that the vendor has given you, you might be doing too much maintenance. And IoTs and sensors will then allow you to do maintenance in a more less frequent manner. And this combination of high-tech equipment and sensors is going to make a difference. And we will then also, because of the IoT sensors, we will see that the amount of data moving back and forth will increase. Some of the sensors will be analyzed on board, but some of the sensors need to be analyzed by the vendors, and therefore going into the onshore part. We see already now that some companies have started to do onshore planning. And this onshore planning will then enable you to actually look at the fleet and so on. But not too many have done that so far, but we see it's starting to happen. One more important thing is that when you do onshore planning, you need to ensure that you prepare for specialists to come on board. So the suppliers who offer that they can come and fix their own products, maintain their own products, they need to be planned into the whole equation. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Okay, what do all of this mean? It means that still a lot of ships will be doing this the traditional way, with a lot of crew on board and have the people doing it during the voyage. But we see that the requirement is now that you will have a mix of crew and service providers doing the maintenance. You will also probably see that the ship manager or the ship owner is putting together special maintenance teams for maintaining special equipment, and then traveling throughout the fleet to do special maintenance projects. And vendors, of course, like I said earlier, will come with their special crew and special service providers. So all of this is creating a big challenge, like I already mentioned. It needs to happen in port. And port is the most sort of sensitive place to prolong the stay. So you need to do proper planning, because it will be too expensive or unpractical to have people going on board the vessel and following it on the voyage. So you need to plan extremely accurate to ensure that the port stay is short. Like I said earlier, the IoT will help because you will get more information earlier on, especially on the very high-end equipment. But at the end, even with high-end equipment and with less maintenance, some maintenance need to be done sooner or later. We see that there will be probably some elements that can be lifted up off the vessel while in port and just being replaced. But of course, on a vessel, it's not easy to do that with all things. There's a lot of things under deck that is not, you're not able to do that. But we will see that people will actually then take off parts of equipment or whole equipment and do the maintenance on shore and just put on board a new already maintained element or equipment. So when you have all of these different parties involved in your planning, you also need to prepare, because you can't just come on board a vessel and start doing. You need to look at your barriers. You need to look at what you need to close. You need to look at, can we do these two things at the same time? Do we need to adjust our plan? So you have a preparation you need to do before someone comes on board, and you need then to control all your known elements. The known elements is people, spare parts, own crew, other crew, third-party crew. But then in addition to that, you have uncontrollable elements, which is weather, third-party traveling, change of port because of commercial issues and so on. So you can risk that people are at the quay with the spare parts, but in the wrong port. So they are there too early or too late. All these elements you need to look into. So this, all of this is actually boiling down to a new type of maintenance system, not only supporting what to do and when to do it, but also planning the combination of all the elements I mentioned, the crew, the spare parts, service providers, and so on. Because you need to actually plan them very thoroughly, and you need to make sure that you don't have any collisions. We will still have to do calendar-based and counter-based and condition-based maintenance, but we now have to include opportunity-based maintenance and include the sensor data and combining that with onboard and onshore maintenance planning. So you need a extremely good planning tool included in the maintenance system to take care of all of this. And you need to actually look into, what if this happened? And what if that happened? So you need to have alternative plans ready for all the elements that can go wrong, and for those elements that are not predictable as such. But like I said earlier, this is a little bit sort of taking it way into the future. We know it will take a while before we get vessels without crew or with very few crew on board. We know that it will take a while before all the IoTs are working and so on, but it's that direction we're all moving into. And it's important then to actually stay in forefront of this. And we know that some ship owners have already started on a journey, others have not, and will take maybe longer time to get to the journey, but the journey is there. So what I will leave the word now to Per Anders, who will say a little bit how STAR is meeting these challenges and how we see other challenges that need to be thought through. Per Anders, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, John. Yeah, we started on this journey several years ago, actually, when we were trying to foresee what kind of maintenance system our customer would be needing in the future, as we were doing a generation shift of our software, and we're taking it from various angles, and starting working on the new generation of software that we believe will be a big leap into the future, the way that we software providers can support the future need. What we have done is that we've been looking into our logo, saying safety and cost matters, because safety of the crew that's going to perform the work is important. And with this new kind of service team that's going to board ships to provide the maintenance and the services, they need to be familiar with the ship, and they need to be working in a very controlled and safe environment. And as a ship owner, ship manager, and part of the crew on board, they need to assist on making this working environment safe. The controller works functionality that we build into the software that goes hand in hand with the maintenance software we believe will help to ensure that everything is been done in a safe manner, and at a time where there is no risk that one operation in one area is in conflict with operations in the same area or in the nearby area, and also in combination with the vessel operations, the cargo operations, as probably are taking place at the same time as the maintenance jobs are being done. Some of the maintenance jobs that need to be done are more complex. They need preparations. Maybe some of the equipment is located in the place that is needed the scaffolding. You need some electricians to shut down the electricity before the mechanics people come in and do the maintenance job on equipment. And this is what we call a multidisciplinary job that you need to prepare and plan for several stages in the job. And there are different resources doing the different steps in the job. And the planning tool that we are building, they take into account that even for one job, there might be different resources that need to be thoroughly planned to be able to utilize their time and time availability and the time spent on board in the best way. So that's a part of the new functionality that we build in there. Of course, like John said, equipment may not be maintained just based on a calendar anymore, because the calendar doesn't tell anything about the condition of the equipment, but sensors will. And we need to take that sensor data from the sensors and bring them through analysis tools and systems and bring them into the maintenance plan. If you are able to predict when a maintenance job needs to be done, or if you can have a sensor telling that this equipment is now at a stage that it needs to be replaced or maintained. So bringing in information from IoT, from sensors, that's also something that we've been working on the latest years, and it's now available and possible to trigger maintenance jobs based on condition of the equipment. John mentioned a thing about being able to lift and complete the equipment or an assembly off the vessel and replace it by an overhauled equipment instead. In our software, we are now able to do that in one drag and drop operation that brings an assembly of several equipment in the same move operation. And of course, together with it, it brings also all the documentation, all the spare part definitions, all the maintenance histories, all the plant maintenance goes also along with the assembly, and of course leaving a copy behind on the vessel where it has been. So it's well documented both on board the vessel without equipment and together with equipment that is maybe overhauled and used on another ship in the future. With the new concept, we believe that the ships don't necessarily need to have all the spare parts on board, as the maintenance will be done while the vessel is in port anyway. Then the service providers will bring the spare part along with them when it's needed, or the shipping companies may organize that the spare part being located in the warehouses are then moved into the right port, into the right time for the maintenance job that's going to be done while the vessel is in port. So the extended supply and logistic functionality with the transparent data when it comes to spare part and spare equipment, where you can see where the items are available for the planners to transfer the items from the store location into the locations where they are needed at any time. That's also something we had in our software for some time, and it's becoming more and more important in the future. We also built a new foundation for the future software. We call it Star Foundation, which is then the baseline software-wise, technology-wise for the future applications that we are building and releasing. A part of that is the what we call the Star Central for mobility, where we control and manage all the new releases, versions, and updates that we release on the software, and automatically distribute it to the end users. So there's no need for the end user any longer to check for or ask for an update of the maintenance system. It will come there automatically once it's been released and approved by the shipping company or the ship owner that says that yes, we're going to have this this new release on board, and then it's automatically pushed out to the mobile devices and the desktops where it's used. We have already released a number of mobile apps to support the onboard operations or the warehouse operations for those customers who have warehouses where they have stored the centrally stored items. These are now available, and they work together with the existing Star application used on board the vessels. And they will also be a part of the future set of applications that is a part of the Star Suite software solution from Star. Planning is essential, as John said, and we are now about to release what they call a Star Suite Planner, which is a planning tool that can either be used to plan operations on board one vessel, or you can plan service providers who provide service to a fleet of vessels. So lifting lifting it from being one ship in focus to be a resources in focus, or the fleet in the focus, or combination of resources, ship operation in focus. The idea with a planning tool is that when you're making plans, you can make many plans, and you compare the plans against each other and see which plan is the better. And that's also one of the things that we have made for our planning tool, is that you can make several plans to foresee various kind of maintenance operations that's going to be done. And as time goes by and you're getting closer and closer to the time and date when you are going to implement the plan, something has maybe happened on board. So you need to change the plan, at any time, but at least when time comes and you're going to implement the plan and do the maintenance jobs, you have the best plan ever, and with as less conflicts as possible to be able to do the maintenance in as a short time as it can be while the vessel is in port. Going from a single vessel planning to be more into a resource availability and the fleet planning, that's something that will be supported in this new planning tool that we are providing. And yeah, and having various plans in there and as optional plans, and the plan that is then approved will then update the actual live production maintenance plan for the vessel. So once the plan has been approved, maybe onshore, the vessel maintenance system will be updated with new dates and new resource availability information from this plan into the user interface that the crew on board has. We believe that most of the planning will be done onshore, while the crew on board will more be the people who are performing the jobs as they have been approved and as part of the running plan for the vessel. Looking further ahead, we will implement more activities into the plan, not just maintenance, but maybe also audits, certificate renewals, drills, shipyard stay, of course, deliveries, crew changes, etc. And also try to have external factors, some kind of modeled into the planner with the sailing plan, weather information, any deviations, any ship stuck in the Suez Canal, etc., into the planner, and have more factors into the decision process, and also having the software to help us to do several what-if analysis. What if the port changed? What would then happen to our plan? What if there any changes to anything in there? And the software need to be updated, and the software should warn or tell the users that something has happened. So you need to take a look into this plan, and maybe based on the new information, this might be the best plan for the coming operation and the common maintenance that's going to take place in the port. So the plan that we are going to release now, that's going to just be the first version. We're going to add a lot of more elements and activities into the plan, so you can make a plan based on more incoming factors. The plan becomes like an operational digital twin, and you can make as many digital twins as you like and do as many what-if analysis as you like. And based on all this analysis and with help of artificial intelligence and everything that is then available as tools in the IT environment to help you to make the best plan as possible for the maintenance and for the operation of the vessel. We already have a few customers that have received the first vessels with less crew on board. They are going in that direction. We have customers in the oil and gas industry, but we've been working on shore-based planning for optimized operations on board, where they're looking into resources availability as the most important parameters for the planning. So we have customers with this experience that we have brought on board that helps us to develop the new products and yeah, give us guidelines how the new products will work. So we're also inviting and welcoming anybody who wants to join us on this the rest of the journey that we're gonna be on in the coming year to provide the best maintenance and maintenance planning tool in the market.
Oh, thank you. Should we go to the Q&A part of? Yeah. Well, that sounds great. Well, I've got lots of questions myself. To the audience, if you were in the Q&A part of the discussion, if you want to enter any questions, I don't see any at the moment, but I'll start with some of my own, I think. So one thing that struck me was how much of these changes are nothing to do with digital technology at all. So perhaps we might see that the cost of rerouting a ship gets much higher, or ship schedules get far more rigid because we've got teams plan to do maintenance. Perhaps we're going to have to plan the maintenance much more carefully from a safety perspective if you've got 5 or 6 tasks going on at once. That's something shipping industry hasn't perhaps thought about so far. We talked about the modular equipment, so we're changing the way we have equipment on the ship altogether, and we're going to have staff that can do many different jobs. That's something we haven't seen in the past. So do you want to share some thoughts on a sort of start with the non-digital part of this, because these are all big changes we might see to the whole shipping industry. If that's quite a big change. There's nothing to do with software, isn't it? Do you have any?
I think that the changes that is been done in the software is a consequence of all these other changes that you mentioned. So software is just a tool to support reality. At least in the most cases, then the reality comes first and the software systems come afterwards. But we think we have taken a good look into the crystal ball and believe what's going to be then some of the requirements in the future. But there's no reason for us to build the software without supporting the reality. So the changes that you mentioned, that we see it's happening, and it's going to happen independent of the software systems.
Yeah, there's also things like when you hear about ships getting rerouted quite casually. I know those stories we heard about the Russian tankers had to go around the world to different ports, and you hear about these gas carriers that get traded when the cargo's halfway there, and the trader thinks it's going to go somewhere else. But these things are going to get a lot harder if we're going to have these much tighter schedules in port for maintenance work, or perhaps we won't. I don't know. It's, you can't imagine an airline changing its destination halfway through, because that's
No, but that's the sort of the law of the income. Income is with the cargo, and the cargo owner decides where to offload and so on. And will make the world harder for those who are more concerned about the technical elements, because they have to follow suit in this, and they need good planning tools. And as we all know, a good plan gives you flexibility, because then you have something to change. And that's where what we see is happening, that, and you need to plan it throughout the fleet, not only the individual ship. So it's going to be harder, but we will make sure we have a software that helps people with this.
Yeah. Well, another question on the software. So, I mean, people will have to spend a lot more money on software. I mean, a lot of these things you presented have already been developed in other industries, like the digital twins and the more complex planning and predictive maintenance. But the shipping industry is not used to spending. And the maintenance software is still fairly straightforward. I think more like a sort of spreadsheet and a plan. It's not any of this sophisticated stuff. So we'll need a bit of a cultural change in the shipping industry, perhaps, do you think, to spend more money? And
yeah, we would always like the ship owners to pay more. That sort of goes without saying. But it also a little bit on the since we work in several areas, we see that we benefit a lot from this, to actually be able to move the tools into the more shipping. There's volume there, compared, for instance, if you compare it with oil and gas and that part. So we take advantage of being able to do services in several industries, but also then into the volume, and trying to keep the price at the affordable level for ship owners. But of course, if they want to pay more, we are more than happy.
yeah.
One of our customers said that if you believe insurance is expensive try and accident, and having a good planning software is like an insurance against being in trouble if you're standing there and your ship can't take the cargo or take the trip because you don't have the certificate because you haven't been able to do the maintenance. So I think for those companies who are going into that direction to have less crew on board and are getting more depending on having the maintenance done while the vessel is in port, I think they have to do some small investment in good planning software as well.
Yeah. And this control of work, I mean, so I think the control of work software, that goes back to Piper Alpha when there was a maintenance task going on and people didn't know that this task had been done when the shift changed, and that's caused, I think, 170 deaths. So now these systems are managed, so everybody knows what work is happening at once. But this is new to shipping. When your oil and gas customers have been doing this for some time, but I've never heard this even mentioned in a shipping context before. So that's something totally new for people to think about, control of work, do you think?
Well, we have been receiving requests from some shipping companies for lately about the software for control of work, because they see that it's important to operate safely. But it's getting there, and we have a long experience from the oil and gas industry, and yeah, like I said, our software is prepared for it. So when the shipping asks for it, it's ready.
Yeah, what we have learned, a lot of shipping companies have been doing this on paper manually on the side because they simply need to control it. So people are not sort of being electrified and so on. So, but we see it's coming more to shipping right now.
Oh, okay. So we have the first question coming up is Mohit Kamani. I think he's a product marketing lead in Singapore. I'm not quite following this question here, but he's talking about how you make sure you have the latest data to get the proper planning. How does IoT integrate with your solution for inventory on board? I guess this is lots of complicated little elements to that, but do you want to share some thoughts on integrating data into your planning system?
Yeah, we of course we depend on a good data quality for whatever is on board a vessel, and having a good stock control of your inventory on board, that's important. All that data is typically replicated from the vessel, our software. And what we're also doing right now is that we replicate towards all the vessels availability that exist in other vessels or in shore-based warehouses. So on board any vessel, you can see the quantities available in the entire fleet. And if you need something urgently on board one vessel and you don't have it, and you see that it exists somewhere in your fleet, you can ask for a transfer of that item either from the warehouse or from another vessel. And of course, the system is also handling the transfer of the cost as the purchasing of the item has been done for one vessel, but now it's going to be transferred to another vessel. So also the cost has to be transferred, of course. Yeah, that's something that they exist.
Yeah, let me just add that the whole thinking is based upon that you are updated on shore on all the vessels, and our system, our suite is based upon the fact that you either are directly or for those who are not possible to be directly, they can be replicated on a frequent basis. So of course, the frequency of updating each other and so on, if you are not able to be online, is important, but that's taken care of. The customer can combine this. They can have vessels that are offline and vessels that are online, and in a combination.
Yeah, we were talking before the webinar about master data management. I know it's not the most glamorous of topics, but it's just a sort of disciplined approach or kind of a cultural approach of caring for data far more. Like we can always have the right data, but it's whether we're going to make the right effort to get the data we want in the right place. Is that?
Yeah, I would say at the end of the day, structured data is essential for everybody. If you don't have proper data, you don't have proper reports, and you don't make proper decisions. And to control the master data is a underestimated thing for years, and still is. And I would wish that everybody spent time on controlling their master data, just to have a plan for it and so. But it's expensive, and that's why I think a lot of people don't pay too much attention to it. But I would hope that this becomes reality for more people. Master data control.
Yeah. So if we go to this question from Torgil Scumsness, who's a maintenance supervisor with Shearwater in Bergen. So he's asking about integrating sensors with the maintenance management system. But I suppose it's a sort of similar answer in that, yes, you can integrate everything, but actually connecting the right thing to trigger the right task is a really, really difficult and something you have to think about very carefully, and companies have to adjust budget to. Do you want to share some thoughts on that?
Well, I can start. Per-Anders, you will just. We have done some practical work with some vendors, because it's at the end of the day, it's the vendors who will understand, the manufacturer vendor who will understand the IoT results. You know, if vibration, heat, that combination is not necessarily something that we would know, but the vendors would know it, because it's different from item to equipment. So we have done test projects towards several vendors where we give them data, they pick it up, they analyze it, and give us feedback to us what should happen with their equipment. And we think that's the way it have to happen, because it's the manufacturer vendor who have the control over their own products. Per-Anders, you want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, the maintenance jobs are there to prevent that the equipment fails, and the manufacturer should know exactly what job to trigger if they see that an equipment is about to fail, either to replace a part or doing some service or whatever it is. And that competence and that knowledge should come from the manufacturer based on the sensor data that comes from the equipment on board, for them to look into, analyze, and give the right guidelines and directions to the crew on board the vessel.
Oh, okay. So if we go to John Leith, so he's director of Net Zero Marine Services. I've just looked at his website. I think he's offering electrification for ships calling in the River Thames here in London. And he's asking if you work with inland and coastal vessel operations data. I wouldn't imagine there's any fundamental difference between different types of ships in this, is it?
No, it's the same. We have customers who are ocean going and ferries that are sort of, whether it's inland or wherever it is, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Well, one thought that comes to my mind, so we're changing the model of software delivery now to far more of a service than a product, because all this stuff can be enormously complex, and there's a limit to how much shipping companies want to pay for or what complexity they want. But this idea of maintenance software being an actual product is probably going to be gone soon, isn't it? Do you think? I mean, are you seeing this trend already, that you're becoming far more of a service provider, developing specialist tools for different customers rather than?
Well, what we do is that we have one source code, which is important to have only one source code for your solution, and we have the ability to create how it looks, the look on the screen, different from each customer without changing the source code, and the same thing with the processes. So we can give each customer a template and process oriented software where we keep the source code the same for everyone. We upgrade everybody, but each customer is keeping their specialities without being affected when we upgrade, which is a big important step for quite a number of customers, because they are used to that they have to more or less implement everything once again. And so our software is actually providing for different scenarios, different processes, different customers, because each customer have different needs. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of similarity in them. But we can take care of them.
Your colleague Christine has prompted us to look at the second part of Torgil's question. So how many service providers are giving sensor integration with planned maintenance systems? I don't know which, I guess the sensors all integrate and the maintenance software will integrate, but it's more the challenge of who's going to do the hard work of connecting them together, isn't it? But I mean, I suppose it's an increasing trend, but it's still very, very difficult to do. I suppose companies don't do very much of it so far, integrating sensors with maintenance management systems, would you say?
No, at the moment we are working with 4 companies looking into this. 2 of them are manufacturers, 2 others are providers of sensors. So it's 2 different ways of looking into it, but we have 4 of those projects going on.
Yeah, we also see there is actually popping up companies. The only thing they do is actually be the middleman between sort of a lot of sensors in data and companies like us. So there is a movement. It's still some area to cover, but it's moving ahead.
But even 10 years ago, one of our customers did this directly themselves together with Karsten Moholt for vibration analysis on board their FPSO vessels. So it's not something that is brand new. It's just something that the industry hasn't been doing before. It's the technology actually been there, but it's just not been done. But our software system has been open for that kind of integration since we started STAR 25 years ago.
Yeah. Do you see any trends in terms of specific equipment this applies to? I mean, in oil and gas, they talk about rotating equipment quite a lot, but needing condition monitoring and more complicated maintenance. I suppose in ships, there's a lot of rotating things, which mainly the engine is probably the biggest one that needs this kind of maintenance, or maybe engines these days are getting quite maintenance free. Did you have any specific equipment you'd like to mention that?
I don't know. I guess more and more the equipment comes with sensors, and I'm becoming more and more like a computer, where they gather all this information and try to send the information from the equipment itself to the manufacturer. So I think it's all kind of equipment that is in that trend. And if you're talking about autonomous ships, I guess all the equipment need to have that kind of sensors and the condition monitoring equipment, on board. Otherwise, the autonomy ships will stop for sure.
Yeah, and hull cleaning is a subject we've done other webinars on that a lot of companies are looking at, monitoring the fouling and I guess this is relevant to hull cleaning, isn't it? But maybe that's more of a, I suppose it must be something they have to plan out and crews that do it in the ports, is that?
Yeah, I guess you have sensors for machinery performance and hull performance and speed performance, and it's possible to predict a lot based on those kind of data, I guess.
Yeah. Do you want to say his thoughts on the decarbonisation theme, because that seems to be bringing in a lot more complicated equipment. We're talking about different fuels, more monitoring of emissions, more costs if you're using more fuel than you need to. So I guess this is another big trend driving this change in how maintenance is being done. Do you want to share thoughts on that?
The making vessels more green.
Yes.
Is of course a factor that is playing into with more complex equipment. It's not as possible for the crew to do the maintenance, or they need maintenance help when they do it, or advice and so on. So of course, making the vessels greener is a factor in this. And then you have like battery instead of a normal engine and so on. So yeah, all of these things are more complex, more maybe replaceable bits and pieces. You take out replacement and so on. I can, my father used to fix his car, himself, knew everything. It was quite easy, and a little bit of wire and so on. That's not possible anymore. You have to have a computer to analyze what's going on, and they simply take out big parts. And this will be similar with vessels.
Yeah, I was thinking about what shipping might look like in 10 years. I guess the crew, what maintenance they still do, I guess they'll do painting and oiling, but they're not going to be able to touch anything, just like today's car drivers or train drivers don't.
Yeah, and if you have vessels without crew, you maybe have to have spare vessels while you sort of take one out of traffic and do a project on it, docking and do all the maintenance needed. And then so you actually have more vessels at hand, simply because you run them without crew. Could be a situation. And we are also prepared for that part, running projects interlinked with this, all of the rest of our software and so on.
Well, that's a big expense for the ship owner, having vacant vessels on standby, isn't it?
Yeah. But you know, the crewless vessels would probably occur first, maybe in ferries or vessels going just coastal and so on. I don't know. We don't know this, but we just see that this is topics being discussed and so on. So we don't. It's cheaper because part of the cost for a vessel is crew. So you save the crew cost, but maybe you need to have 2 vessels or 3 vessels instead of 2. I don't know, but this is what we see is discussed at least.
Yeah, I think Norway is turning into the leader on this autonomous shipping thing. I heard all ferries have to be autonomous by 2025 or something, don't they? I guess if you're in Norway, you'll be learning all about this.
That's a little bit early, I think. but they are discussing, you know, how can we do this with unmanned or with very few crew on board. On a ferry with transporting passengers, it's probably take a while before it's totally unmanned. But we don't know. But the world is changing, and we need to change with it.
Yeah, and that's the most important subject here is that maintenance itself is going to be done very differently. It's the end of hourly maintenance done by the crew. It's going to be much more complicated organizing, and I guess that's the main message we want to people to leave with. We're coming towards the end now. There's no more questions, but I don't know if you want to give a sort of last 2 minutes each of what you'd like to leave the audience with, and if you'd like people to contact you, and if you want to.
I could say that the main thing here is that we, as a software provider, application provider, is trying to stay ahead with changes, going as we have done for the last 25 years, and we think we are fairly good at sort of reading the market and being early out with good solutions, and we are continuing that journey. It's an interesting journey. Both me and Per-Anders are not as young as we used to be. And we've been doing this for many years, and we love it. Actually, we like doing this. So I would leave it with that. We're looking to the future, and we will be there.
Oh, Per-Anders, on any?
Yeah, we don't have all the questions. We don't have all the answers, but we'd like to listen to those who have questions and looking for answers, and we'll try to help them to provide solutions that will support their operations in the future. So we are welcoming them and inviting them to join us on the journey.
Oh, there we go. So there's big changes in maintenance coming up, and we're already seeing shipping companies are asking for different systems in their systems, and there's going to be a lot more of this coming in the future, and you heard it first on a Digital Ship webinar. So thank you very much, John and Per-Anders, and I shall pass back to Anna Nefelli for the closing words. Cheers.
Thanks, Karl. And thank you to our speakers for giving us their insights on the futures of maintenance and shipping. I mean, maritime digitalization, there's no going back. So I guess this subject is becoming more and more important. So thank you for your time. Before I sign off, can I remind our audience, we have one more webinar coming up on the 30th of June, then we're going on a hiatus for July and August, but we'll be back in September. So keep updated on LinkedIn and on our websites for upcoming webinars. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for your time. Bye.